who with me now is Andre Cilliers from TreasuryONE. Thank you very much for your time, Andre. You're watching Biz News TV. I'm Bronwyn Nielsen. Andre, let's get a lowdown on the currency. Of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa taking to the podium again last night, removing us to an adjusted level 2. Does that have an impact on the currency, given that that is really at the political stage perspective?
Unfortunately, I have to say that that has got absolutely no impact on the markets in terms of the rand this morning at all. Uh, I think when we look at that impact, that's something that will come through in economic growth figures. Yes, certainly it spells a positive on that end because more places will be open. Well, not really open, but more places will be able to function in a better way than they have before. I think the fact that people can be 250 people inside now will benefit restaurants, etc., a heck of a lot. It will benefit the tourism sector a heck of a lot. And that's certainly needed, and that will be positive. But that's longer term, no direct impact this morning.
Last time we chatted, Andre, we were very much looking to the fourth wave and the impact that that would have on the economy, whether there would be another lockdown. That's obviously got to be one of the key scenarios that still plays at hand when you look at the local unit.
Yes, certainly it does. But the positive news that came out of last night's address by Mr. Ramaphosa was the fact that our vaccination program now runs in the order of 1 million people per week. Now, that's very positive, and we have, if you look at that, then we have some 8 to 9 weeks, call it 10 weeks, 8, 9, somewhere around there, before the holiday season actually kicks in for December. So that simply tells me that we could get our vaccination program up to the amounts of another 10 million or so. And if people play together and they really go and gather, then we could most probably get that a little bit higher. And that will be positive, and that could impact on how severe a fourth wave is. We also have to take into account that we're speaking about the fourth wave in December. The more people that's vaccinated, the less impact, and we will only see that impact coming through after the holiday season, because that's when people return and they've been infected and they will be hospitalized, etc. then. So very easily another 10 to 15 million could possibly be vaccinated before then. That will
And the
help a
local
heck.
elections also having bearing on obviously potential transmission. Andre, you must have given that some thought.
That's more of a worry at this point in time because that's a lot closer and we have less time to vaccinate more people. But I do think that the measures that will be put in place will be very, very strict. The observance of gatherings will be very, very strict. Especially on the voting day. And I think social distancing, that would be a very controlled area. And concentrated in certain places. So I think that will be well controlled and that will help. It won't be uncontrolled gatherings.
The risk of rioting and looting, this was something that was a key concern for you just 2 weeks ago. Has the risk passed? Do you think that this is now something that you are not working into your models and that we actually have moved beyond it?
I'm still on alert level there in terms of violence during the elections. I think the situation between political parties and the way they handle their things, especially from the far left-wing side and even from the far right-wing side, is dangerous. It's could erupt into chaos. And if you look at some of the killings that's taken place just over the last week in KwaZulu-Natal, then I'm beginning to wonder whether that might not be politically inspired already. So that remains a concern to me.
Talk to me about the trading ranges, Andre, that you have for the foreseeable future.
Well, we're having some interesting times. We've got a rand that wants to strengthen. It did strengthen a heck of a lot, and that's amidst a period where the dollar had actually also strengthened. Where you would have expected that the rand will show some signs of weakening during that strengthening. If we look at the euro, then we've seen that coming down from the 1860, 1870 levels. We're currently trading down below the 118. We're down at the 117.75, with the rand remaining at the 1420 levels. So our cross rates well below 17 against the euro. Our pound lying at 963. 1963. So the rand actually very strong at this stage and doing very well. Concerns me a little bit. Where's that little elastic band of pulling too far, too strong, when it's going to bounce back to the 1450, 1460 range, where I'm actually very comfortable with the currency. So trading ranges, 1410, 1470, with the risk at this point in time rather to the upside if the dollar continues on its strengthening path.
So you believe the rand has gotten a little ahead of itself in terms of the strength that we've seen of late?
Well, whenever have we seen the rand behave properly? It's either too weak or too strong. It always pulls a little bit too far in that elastic band and then makes a bit of a correction. So yes, I think it's a little bit too strong. It's gone a little bit too far and people a little bit ahead of themselves. So I think rather on the upside, back to the 1460, 1470 levels.
You mentioned the euro and the dollar. Anything in the international space that you're specifically on alert for?
Well, not really. I mean, we've spoken a heck of a lot in the last couple of weeks about the Federal Reserve and the drive that they have to see employment rather than curbing inflation or containing inflation. They're still on very much the same drive. It was confirmed last week by the European Central Bank that they're on exactly the same drive. They both in the European side and in the American side now mentioned that they will start tapering on their quantitative easing a little sooner, but they're still happy with the inflation levels that's above their targets, and rather looking at growth and fostering growth and helping the economies return to sustainable growth. So no surprises, and I doubt whether there will be any right up to the end of the year.
And then, of course, our own central bank governor, Cilliers, giving a speech to Stellenbosch on 21 years of inflation targeting. That was well received by economists across the board in South Africa. So his stance firmly in play. We know that inflation targeting is the way forward for our own central bank. Just in terms of interest rates going forward, we will follow suit with the rest of the world, Andre?
We will follow suit, and Mr. Cilliers in his MPC has always been slightly ahead of the curve, but there's no immediate interest rate increases out of the US or out of Europe. And if you look at our inflation, and we spoke about that 2 weeks ago, our inflation well contained, our inflation lower than that of the Americas, then there is actually room for the Reserve Bank to come in with a lowering of a 50 or a 75 basis points of interest rates. But I said 2 weeks ago, they will not do that. I confirm that's still my standpoint. They will not change. But that would simply mean that they have room to remain at the current levels of interest rates for a little bit longer, still giving a lot of room for the people on South African side with the lower interest rate levels, saving, being able to repay their debt, and even if they were to make debt at fairly low levels.
And then just before we let you go, we also need to just talk about the commodity underpin that we repeatedly reference when it comes to the South African rand. And again, that's a space that you're watching, some volatility in that space.
Yes, especially on the call it the top three, the platinum, palladium, and gold. On those three, quite a bit of movement. I'm not too concerned. People was concerned a little bit about the growth levels of economies. We have seen a very, very sharp movement upwards on those. A bit of consolidation is actually a very good thing. And then as economies continue to grow, coming out of the COVID periods, I think the demand will still be there. And the consolidation is, as I say, more positive to me than anything else. And the growth and the upward movement would just be at a slower pace and less of an incline, but the demand's still there.
Andre Cilliers, TreasuryONE, thank you so much for joining us here on BizNews TV.
Thank you.